Hello. Greetings from greetings for the World Mental Health Day. It's our third Zoom party. We are going to carry on this meeting for about an hour. We have very important participants among us. Dr. Sartorius, Dr. Rachel Jenkins, and Dr. Tsuyoshi Akiyama from World Federation for Mental Health. He will be, especially Dr. Akiyama will have to leave early, so we may listen to him first, then to our esteemed colleagues, senior mental health educators. Welcome among us, Dr. Akiyama.
Thank you very much, Brent. But before I make my greeting myself, I want to surprise you.
Hello, Bulent.
Oh.
I heard that our president-elect, Dr. Akiyama, is going to be presenting to you today. And I told him that I've been doing this for the past 2 years. And I said, we decided to surprise you. And I wanted to say thank you once again on World Mental Health Day for gathering all these amazing delegates to your webinar. And so I decided I'm going to Zoom bomb your party today and just say hello, and to also say thank you very much for being so committed to World Mental Health Day. And it's really just amazing what you do. And I want to congratulate you and applaud you for all the amazing work you do with the medical students and making sure that mental health is on the agenda, and specifically on World Mental Health Day. So wishing you all the best with your proceedings today, and blessings to everyone, and happy World Mental Health Day. And may mental health be a universal human right for all of us. Thank you so much. And I hand you back to our president-elect.
Very much. It has really been a very good surprise.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. And I only echo Ingrid, our immediate past president. Now, it is getting clearer and clearer that treatment needs to aim at recovery so that the person can live the life which the person wanted to live originally. Stigma is like a huge iceberg. It is so huge, it is not easy to melt, looks like. However, with the passion of the people who gather here, starting with Professor Norman Sartorius, Brent Koskinen, Rachel Jenkins, they started the passion of anti-stigma. I have been following, and you guys can follow. From next month, November, I will serve as president of the World Federation of Mental Health. We will collaborate with good people like you so that the huge iceberg of stigma can be melted a bit more next month. Thank you very much, and enjoy a great World Mental Health Day party. Thank you very much.
We thank you a lot. Thank you for being among us. And please convey our warm regards to the activity you are going to attend in a few minutes.
We passionate Singaporean friends are hosting a great event. I will convey the information about your webinar to them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. May I pass to Eugene? Would you like to take over today?
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. Just quick introduction. I'm Eugene. I'm a psychiatrist from Malaysia, and I heard that Bulan is actually having some technical issues on his side, so I would chip in and take over as we can. I do want, because the main motive of this Zoom party, this is actually our third iteration already, is that we want to let the students, the upcoming doctors and even psychiatrists to take hold. So I would like to invite the students around here to maybe start off, give a few thoughts, discuss about what you think about this year's World Mental Health, any messages, anything, before we call on to our more experts, senior experts to chip in. Maybe Farhad, would you want to chip in first and take the role from there?
Yeah, thank you, Eugene, and thank you, Dr. Bülent. I am also Farhad. I am final year student in Turkey. And actually, today it's Global Mental Health Day. And first, I think that how we can contribute actually to the global mental health around the world. And then actually, I saw that as a student, actually, we need to keep our mental health good and stable. And with that way, we can be good doctors and contribute to the patients. Because actually in our university, I see when I talk with my friends, I see that actually they come across with many difficulties and they are dealing with depression, anxiety. I remember honestly, first year at our university is so harsh because we take the main clerkships like obstetric, general surgery, and we have just a lot of clinical lessons and long hours. And when I talk, and I remember one day I talked with my three different friend, and actually we are not so close, but I see them depressed and I ask just like what happened separately, and all of them say that they actually take some psychological support and they feel so depressed because they failed lessons more than one times. And actually it really break me that day because actually they're my friend, but they even don't feel healthy, and how they can contribute or help other people, other patients. And actually I try to find out that what our university do for such kind of students. I mean, is there any regulations or is there any help? And I see that at our university, actually, we have supervisor teacher, but actually it's only like in a name, just we never get contact with them, or they never try to reach to us, or there's not any, how can I say, education or maybe trainings related to that, like that we may, when we feel that we need for help, we can reach them and ask something from them. Actually, there's no communication like that. It's only like we have title. I know that I have one supervisor teacher, but I have actually never see her or never get contacted with her. Actually, it's like one main problem. Maybe we have some regulations, but they never work for us. And secondly, there's also some other observations that I made. Like I'm in my internship year, my final year, and actually now we are working. Like we have some jobs to do. Like we are not getting any lesson or we don't take any exam. We just work for 1 year. But again, in a day for like 7 hours, we take care of 60 patients, and it's like we have a lot of burden. And with that way, actually it's teaching hospital, but not any like assistants or doctors can teach us anything because they only have time for like asking some question to patient and write them some prescribe and just like let them go. And there's no time that they like turn us and just give some example or just like teach us something about that patient. And it actually make us feel that we are worthless because like we don't actually any job, just we are like observe and they don't give any task to us. And it's like makes us feel worthless. And actually, I also just looked some articles like in the PubMed that just like, is there any difference in mental health of medical students? And I see that it's also like actual worldwide phenomenon, I can say. Just again, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety is higher in medical students because of long duration of schooling and just stressful doctor-patient relationship, and like numerous patient population, and so on. Just I want to make point about these things, and maybe then we can brainstorm about like these points and maybe try to give some solution, or just like think that what we can do.
I think what was raised up is actually quite appropriate for this year's theme. Mental health is a universal right. We often, when we talk about universal right, we always talk about the less fortunate. We always think about those who potentially will have issues trying to assess mental health. But I agree actually that the theme also actually expands even further to who else needs mental health access. In this case, in our settings, in our context, healthcare practitioners, even including students, newly joined medical doctors and all this. How often do they have access to mental health support or mental health treatments if they need to? How easy is it to get? More so, especially because we are pretty much being seen as a population that should technically never fall sick. That includes never have any mental health conditions. But I leave it to the floor. Anyone else who want to chip in and comment, or maybe start the ball rolling to kind of go on and have a chat about all this? I think this will all, it's a good starting point.
Just can I add one thing? Just, I think that it's like, yeah, actually we can like, as I said, my friends, they have a problem with mental health. We can actually give them some mental health care access, but I don't think that it's a main solution, because if system if system makes these people like stress and depressed, and then we can't get enough support for them. I think we need to change actually system, like give some maybe trainings and maybe lower the lesson burden or just patient burden. In that way, actually these people are healthy. I mean, they don't have any problem in daily life, but when it comes to medical stuff or lesson stuff, they have difficulties. I mean, I guess there's some there's some how can I say, some wrong points in the system, in the school or in the hospital.
Maybe would anyone else wants to kind of comment or chip in or jump in with this particular things that Farhan raised up? Do maybe just some heads up, unlike the slightly past Zoom parties that we used to have, this year, unfortunately, we will not be having musical instruments. Our musician decided to take a mental health day today, and he won't be joining us. So today we'll be pretty much just to highlight. And I think one of the things the students actually pointed out during our planning for today is that they want to get opinions, they want to get ideas on where the areas they could look into if they want to work on, where the areas of mental health they could do something about it. That it's all in the spirits of advocacy and all in the spirits of opening up discussion.
Excuse me, there is a message from Ramin. I just received that. He has made a surprise. There is again a musical. He has sent a link. I will share it in a few minutes. But before, maybe we can have our colleagues, especially the senior participants, to share their views. And we have some young colleagues as well. May we name Professor Sartorius? Would you like to share your views, please, with us?
We can't hear you, Dr. Sartorius.
The World Mental Health Day today is devoted to the rights of people with mental illness and the ways in which they should achieve this. And there is also a considerable material which can be obtained today from the WHO website, so that some of your questions that you will want to ask are probably responded in that material. But I think that in my opinion, many of the medical schools that you mentioned are not providing appropriate training. While in other schools, they're doing something very useful. And it's really a suggestion also to Dr. Coşkun. Perhaps you could consider approaching the World Medical Student Association and see to what an extent this seminar or webinar, that the meetings which you are having could be co-sponsored and done together with the World Medical Association, or Medical Student Association. It's a very large association and has students in different countries. Some of the students have found good solutions to the problems that you mentioned. Why not see what they have to tell us, whether there are some suggestions. It will also give you status of being, and gradually I think having status of collaboration with the World Association of Medical Students, with the World Psychiatric Association, and maybe some other association might be a useful way to proceed to make the event more popular and to also get some help for it. Another point which I'd like to make in relation to what you have said earlier, there are several universities in which medical students have themselves created webinars. One of them is the University of Cluj, CLUJ, in Romania, which has regular events which medical students, in fact, send to the world. There are webinars which I attended. One of them, it was technically well done. It was very interesting. And I think it might be helpful, perhaps, to produce a catalog of such websites in which there are webinars that deal with matters that you just described, and that could be made available to everybody. I think that it's many people complain about things, and that reminds me of a story about which comes from my home country, in which one goes to the street and then sees somebody sitting there and crying, and they say, "Why do you cry?" He says, "I'm crying because I'm sitting on a nail." I say, "Why don't you get up?" He says, "Because it's easier to cry." And I think it's in many ways, we have seen that some of the solutions which require some effort, people are finding difficult to get into it. But I think that with a little bit of effort, many people complain, but there are outstandingly good sources of information, and not only information, but also chances to get to know other people, to become friends with them, and to create an international network of people who are interested in mental health and who might wish to collaborate with you. So I don't want to, maybe just one last comment. In olden times, there was a question of numerology. Every number meant something special. Well, the number 10 is a very special number. In Chinese, the sign for 10, it means life. And the same is true for Egyptian. The old Egyptian sign for life is also similar to the number 10. And so in the Chinese number 10. And so I think that it's important to remember that the date of 10th October is not chosen at random. It has a meaning in its numerological sense.
All right, thank you very much. Would there be anyone else who would like to chip in and jump in and share their thoughts about today's World Mental Health theme and events? Perhaps Professor Rachel, would you want to join in? And
well, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me again. First of all, I wanted to respond to Ferhad's thoughts about the importance of mental health in our medical students and in the first year interns, I think you were saying, where there's a big problem. And it was reminding, I think this is crucial because we don't want to lose any of our medical students. It's really important to retain them and keep them going through to a medical career. I was reminded that when I was a consultant at Barts, I was asked to look after the depressed medical students. And one of my observations really in those few years was that it was always the nicest of medical students who did get depressed. It was the really thoughtful ones who were often depressed by the work that they were doing and seeing, and felt somewhat overwhelmed and overloaded by it. So students, let alone medical schools, and that a lot of thought needs to be put into it. But as well as all the, you mentioned all the issues about treatment services and so on, but there's peer support is really important. And if the students can mobilize themselves to have get-togethers and discussion groups, the social networks we know are very protective factors. So I think if you recognise this as an issue amongst your colleagues, sort of organising events where you can try and stimulate peer support, I think can make a difference, as well as trying to ginger up the medical school to improve its access to treatment services and so on. Just might help. Yeah, so I think that's all. Well, I guess the other thing to flag up is the importance of the international agencies that have been going since the end of the Second World War. So I think it was 1948, WHO was founded, the World Federation of Mental Health was founded, and there have been such crucial organizations that have done a massive amount, and Norman Sartorius is living embodiment of this. And I was reminded, I think it was 25 years ago, we had a conference in London to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the World Federation of Mental Health. And now here we are, another 25 years later. So time goes. But a lot of progress has been made over those years. And the organizations have got better at collaborating and working together and inspiring many. So I think that's all I need to say just now. And apologies if my network is not very good. I'm in a little hotel room here. Thank you.
Thank you. We could actually hear you loud and clear. Your connections are very well throughout that. Yeah, so I do understand we have a few more students. Maybe would some of the students want to chip in and have a say on, what are your thoughts about everything we mentioned, and also what about world mental health? Maybe Zara, I saw that you have unmute. You want to jump in?
I'm 5th year medical student from Turkey. I think burnout is also so common in medical students, and I saw that in the PubMeds, like half of medical students have burnout, and I think maybe giving some education, some training can help us about burnout. Maybe how can we do time management, or how can we deal with our issues, like sometimes we can have some depression feelings, and how can we deal with it? And I think giving some trainings, also some webinars like Sartorius said, can help us, I think. Because like I said, in data says that like a half of students have burnout. So I think it can help, yes. Also, stigma is so important. Sometimes if we look these issues, they can cause it with they can't get the help they need. So we should deal with the stigma, I think also. Yeah, that's the things I want to share with you.
That's actually an interesting thought. Again, this is organized by SEED, and I think in the past we have always wondered what are the relevant skills or what are the relevant I'm just going to stick back the word. What are the relevant skills we could actually organize for our members to kind of equip you all as future doctors or even as early career doctors? And we have always focused on looking at writing research, have always focused on talking about mental health topics, but it just crossed my mind that we never actually once thought about what are the skills we could actually share with you all in terms of how to cope or how to handle life as a medical student itself. I do run a program in my medical school. We call it resilience building. It's a therapy-based program, and I think that potentially at Bulan we could keep this we could bookmark this as a future event, and maybe we could run skills workshops or technique workshops online for our medical students to build up some of those things that Zara mentioned. Any thoughts, Bulan?
Well, we were discussing among us, I remember, we have a decreasing number of participants in our meetings, intergenerational meetings on the 10th of each month. So we were discussing if we should have more, not every 10th of each month, but maybe in three months. But when this issue comes about, sharing some information about how to, the headline could be how to, if that would be the topic of meetings, then we could continue our monthly meetings. And while I've got the floor, let me say something about the Medical Students, International Medical Students Association. We tried to get in touch with them, but unfortunately, we couldn't succeed. I had several contacts with them, but they didn't reply. They have a very interesting bureaucracy, worse than our Ministry of Health. When I was working at the Ministry of Health, we had terrible bureaucratic steps, but I'll try again. And if we can succeed, of course, having a collaboration with them would be very useful. And I would like to get the suggestions of the students and also our senior colleagues about how often should we meet. Thank you.
Maybe we could, we bring that up to discussion at a later date regarding the administrative of the future events. I saw Iram join. Are you convenient to talk, Iram? How's your connection over there? Would you want to jump in and chip in and say something about World Mental Health today?
Okay, I can. Can you hear me? Well,
we could hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So I'm a recent medical graduate from Turkey. Currently, I don't work at an healthcare service, but I'm preparing for a medical exam. So maybe I can say something about this time, not about medical students, but recent graduates or general practitioner or something. As Zahra said, it's so important to it's so important for medical students to have some support and build some resilience during their lives. But I think it's also important, as we said and we know, it's also very important for junior doctors, because we are trying to help our patients, but who can help us at that time? So it can be sometimes difficult, especially in the beginning of the first year. For example, we have some compulsory services and in a different place of the country. So we don't have our usual surroundings and our usual support. So I think it's also important to it's so important to have built some resilience network for junior doctors too. Yeah, I can say this for that time.
All right, thank you.
Jean, can I just come in here a second?
Yeah, please, by all.
Because one thing's happened in the UK over the last 20 years, which I think has made life worse for the first year doctors. And that is the loss of the firm structure. When I was a junior doctor and a medical student, we were in what we called firms. So you had the consultant, the senior registrar, the junior registrar, the senior house officer, and then the houseman, the person doing the intern year. So you were kind of in a family. And even though we were then doing a 120-hour week, and I remember I had 60 patients to look after in the day and 120 at night, and got barely any sleep, I did nonetheless feel quite supported, because at the time of the ward rounds, there was a team and there was always somebody I could phone for help. So that kind of mattered, really. But recently, because of the European Working Time Directive, so doctors weren't allowed to work more than, I think, a 60-hour week or something instead of the 120-hour week, all the medical staff have got spread much more thinly, because we didn't double up training to take account of these change in working hours. So now our doctors are kind of cut loose, as it were. There is no family structure that surrounds them. And I think that has made life much more difficult. And if one can arrange the staffing within a hospital so that you retain that, that structure of a kind of hierarchy of seniors who are able to support the junior staff, then I think that can make a big difference. Even if you only see them once a week, it's still something. And usually one sees them more than that, and that they're at the end of the phone. And also the other aspect to that older system is that you know your patients, you've admitted them, you've looked after them and discharged them. Whereas when one's working shorter hours and kind of floating, so to speak, you're often called to see patients who you've never seen before, you don't know, and it makes the work much more challenging and much less rewarding, really. That was all I would say at the moment. I don't know what the situation is in the different countries you're working in.
I do think that pretty much is across a lot of countries now, where they start emphasizing time restrictions on how they could work, and it kind of splits up. A lot of them are kind of separated and clustered within their own. If you're a houseman, you're clustered within your own housemans, and you potentially might not have that same kind of support that used to be there. And yeah. Right. Crystal, perhaps, would you want to jump in? I know I'm name calling here now, but yeah, Crystal, would you want to jump in and have a say?
Sure. Sorry, this is my first time attending a SEED meeting, but involving student mental health. My school actually offers counseling for those who are really struggling. It's anonymous, and I call it trauma bonding, when we all get together and complain about school, but we're all surviving. We're all getting through it. But I do notice that it's like I see a lot of people getting burnt out. I see a lot of people not enjoying their education as much as they used to. And by the way, I'm a second-year osteopathic medical student in Oregon. So I think it's really important that it's like we have tools we can use and the opportunity to actually use those tools, because, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in medicine, kind of soldier on, and it is great until the burnout hits, and you do need to take that break for yourself before a collapse.
Yeah, very true. I'm not sure whether we have two more participants who are with her. But Bulan, could you go ahead and share the video that Ramin shared? I think, is it a clip or? Bulan, could you hear us? Could you share it?
I will try to do that. I hope I can.
I don't feel a single thing. Haven't been lost at lunch. Haven't caught up with my friends in weeks. And now we're on the couch. I've been driving in LA, and the world it feels to be like a floating ball that's about to break. And my psyche I could see. And I just wanna see if you feel the same. Feel again. On its way, in a name I can't pronounce, and it looks like out of day. Boy, I wish that I could talk to the good honesty. It's good will you ever get a little bit tired of my life again? Oh, baby, I'm because you know that I can make by yourself. It's not a survive, because you gotta survive. I get a body in the room, but you're not really better. Like you're not really happy, but you don't wanna die. Like a numb little cry, that's gotta survive. That's gotta survive.
I think we have a little bit of technical issues there, but it's kind of choppy. And I realized that it might not be shared, but that's a cover song, Numb, by Ramin. Ramin is actually our sort of unofficial resident student musician that he always performs whenever we have any events. This might be a generation thing. It's who sang Numb? Maybe some of the younger students could tell me. I've actually never heard of that song before.
I also don't know.
Whoever it is, but the topic was interesting. And it's about being tired. Just after we were talking about burnout or similar issues, there came a music. I didn't have a chance to listen to it before because it came this morning. Anyhow, a very important contribution from Ramin.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Ramin, actually. I do wish he could be here, but something came up. That's why he couldn't at the very last minute. All right. So we've discussed and we highlighted a lot of things. This is being a student discussion. I mean, a student group, and also early career doctors. And in line with this year's theme about accessible mental health being it's a right for everyone and accessibility. And we highlight a lot of issues. We highlight things that, we do want it too. And there is glimmer of hope because there are programs, there are people who are working on it across the world. Maybe just not well known yet, but it is working on. Yeah, Bulan.
Yeah, may I say something? It's very paradoxical. We are talking about Mental Health Day, promoting mental health, but we are dealing with or listening to, hearing about wars, terrible, devastating things occurring in different parts of the world. Not only wars, I'm sure Rachel would say many other issues that would challenge our mental health. But I think Ferhat is going to say something. Then we may hear Rachel or Dr. Sartorius. Yeah.
Actually, if you want to, you can go, Dr. Blunt. I want to say something apart that. If you want, you can continue, and then I can say my words. Okay. Actually, it's like I want to ask from Dr. Sartorius, because actually when I started, it's like I made some complaination about our medical staff and medical education, and actually at the last discussion at the gender dysphoria again, I sense that it's like our perspective is like complaining about something, but like your perspective is like trying to find some solution about them. And maybe I think that actually I also feel that we miss something, because every time we talk about it, but at the end there's actually nothing change about that, even about gender dysphoria and about in that mental health. And I think it's actually maybe culture, or it's like the education or the systems that you have been, and it's changed you, like your perspective towards the topics. But in here, like, I don't know, we don't have any role models that do that, or just we don't have any example in our university or in our hospitals that we take that culture and like to be proactive. And I mean, I want to ask your advice that what we can do, or just like how to gain that, I don't know, leadership, or just like proactive action and try to change something, because without that, there's no meaning to do this kind of meetings.
Yeah, well, medical students of today are much more advanced than medical students of previous times. And they live also in a world in which they get a lot of information from many people. But I think wherever you go, it's very rare that you hear that the medical school is providing good enough training in the field of psychiatry. Sometimes they do. Most often people complain that it's not as it should be. But there is one small solution that one can already start thinking. And that is that today in the digital world, you're not bound to listen exclusively to the professor who is in your medical school. He is there, he does something, maybe he's trying very hard, maybe he cannot do better than he is doing. But you have at the same time access to an unbelievably large number of sources where one can get information about a particular illness or a particular the one skill or a particular problem that be before you. So my one of the suggestions I would really want to make also to Bulent is, number one, to ask the participants in a course, in a meeting like this, to write out on a piece of paper or in some other way, what is the chief interest which they have? What is it that they are missing and they would like to see attached? That would produce a list of things which are of interest. And one could start thinking, where are the sources of information about those things that are of interest? It is easier to invite a person to come and talk when you say, my students have been talking about this, and the thing that they really want to know is what is the modern treatment of depression, or I don't know, some other topic, or what is the way in which we can deal with insomnia. It is possible to find a particular teacher who will come on the website, and I think using the digital means could vastly enhance your access to information and to learning, to all types of learning except for skills. Skills, unfortunately, cannot be transmitted by computer. They can only be transmitted by doing things under supervision and with the help of someone. And that is a continuous problem which we see everywhere. But the first part of getting information about things that are of interest to you can today be resolved, I think, by digital means without any difficulty. Number two, there is a number of things that I think that could be produced as well. There is a number of very useful websites which give you information about mental health and about ways in which one could deal with things and so forth. I think maybe some of you who are skillful with computers, I'm not. I always have some, I only know how to press the button that it starts, but if it doesn't work, I'm lost after that. But there are people who are skillful with computer and who could produce for you a list of websites. You might then wish to ask Rachel Jenkins and other people who are available and who have huge experience to tell you which of these websites are particularly good, if they know them, which would give you a list of sources of information that you might need. Once you have this information, you may go one step further. You have now an excellent website, and you might wish to say, all right, now I'm going to study this website, and I'm going on the basis of this information that I get from the digital world, I'm going to prepare a talk for my colleague students to tell them what I have learned, and to also invite some senior person to come and help in the discussion, which would help you to learn how to speak, but at the same time would also provide information to colleagues of your own age to get information from you, which you have selected from somewhere. So maybe this is one line that one could go. Number two, there is a very large number of specific tools which can be used for training, which are available, for example, at the website of the World Psychiatric Association. They are free of charge, can be used if you want them, and I think would be something that you might also wish to do. My sense is that it is very difficult to change your teachers. You cannot go there and throw them out. But what you have today, which nobody had before, is this enormous kingdom of digital world, in which is very often used in the wrong way or not used at all. So that would be one suggestion I have. The second suggestion would be linked to what I said earlier about Bulent or some of you making a list of what are all the topics that are of interest to you. And I think knowing what is the area of interest that you have, one can much better plan on how to help and what specifically to suggest. So those are the two things that come to mind as I listen to you, but there may be other things as well.
Yeah, thank you a lot.
All right.
Interested to hear that Dr. Coshkun has been in touch with the World Medical Association. Was it the World Medical Association or the World Student Association?
Student, the International Federation for Medical Students Association.
Right. Yeah. They I think they also depend a little bit on who is currently in charge, and they change. So maybe you could go back to them and say that you are very unhappy about what they did to you before, and that you want some better service from them, please.
I will.
The same you should do. For example, the World Psychiatric Association has been now having a special program with medical students. You might wish to write to Dr. Afzal Javed and ask him to put you in touch with a group that deals with medical student problems. Just recently, they have produced superb collection of essays, and one of them, I met him now, has got a first prize for this essay and was invited to come to Vienna to make a presentation. The essays which the students have produced on stigma have been published recently in a book of student essays on stigma, how they see it and what they think could be done about it. So I think that the World Psychiatric Association at present has a great interest in matters of medical students. You might wish to go to them now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Maybe if I were to jump back to Bulan, I think we have raised up a lot of points and it's very good discussion today and all this. Maybe I'll just jump back to Bulan about, you mentioned you wanted to talk about what's ongoing in the world. Could we maybe end on a more somber note and talk about that? And
actually, I wanted to put it as a topic. Maybe Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Sartorius may share their views on those world issues.
What is happening in the world would be yeah. That's an easy thing, you know, Rachel. There we can have no problems. The newspapers are available and one can look at them. But there are so many tragic things that are happening. The most recent war that is now breaking out is not one, and the other one that has gone on for a little while in Ukraine is not one that is very helpful either. But I think that on the positive side, there has been more reason. I'm really coming back to the question of the way in which the digitalization of the world can help us and what we can do about that. So many things have become possible because of that. And I think that that is something that is quite positive. I think that there's also there has been a gradual recognition of the importance of certain things which were neglected for a long time. In the field of psychiatry, the discovery of the work on mental health, on the rights of the mentally ill, I hope, will lead to the second question, which is you cannot realize the rights of the mentally ill in full unless you have the resources which are necessary to make mental health services and mental health care and mental health education appropriate. And at present, I hope that we are on a point where that might change as well. So I think that's on the positive side. What else is there that is new, Rachel, that we should say that may be a surprise to our colleagues here?
I don't think what I'm going to say is a surprise, but it was to add to, as well as all the awful wars that are springing up all over the place, to even more existential threats in a way are, of course, climate change and loss of biodiversity, which your generation will be grappling with, which our generation have made a mess of, really, and are acting far too late. So we're relying on you, I think. And I don't need to go through all the issues about climate change. Carbon dioxide levels are much higher than they've been in the last 800,000 years. We've had something like 9 of the hottest summers ever in the last 10 years, etc. So it's definitely happening. Species are going extinct all around us. I think 1 in 6 species in the UK is at risk of extinction, etc. And there's now a lot of evidence coming through that this is all highly relevant to mental health. There's quite a literature there now about the relevance to us. So it is part of your work scope, I would say, as students heading towards your careers. And there's also an issue for all of us personally. And it's very delicate to raise this in this audience, but these international organizations have a very high carbon footprint. When thousands of psychiatrists jet into capital cities around the world, as it were, for a lovely conference where we network, we get a lot of peer support, a lot of nurturing, but the cost to the planet is significant. So we do need events like this instead, Zoom parties, which have a much, much lower footprint. And so there are issues for our own personal behavior as well. That's all I would say, really. I think climate change and biodiversity and its impact on mental health maybe deserves a special session at some point, because it is very interesting and there's interesting papers coming out. Bulent also asked me to think of something good. And I think I must have been depressed because I had a really hard job thinking about anything good that had happened. But there is a little glimmer that I'd like to report from the NHS, which is that it finally, after much lobbying and years of pressure, it produced a workforce plan for the NHS and has committed to doubling the training of medical students. At long last, it's long overdue, but at least it's starting to happen. So that it means in about 15 years hence, the UK may be causing less brain drain than it currently does. So for me, that was a little snippet of good news. But that was all I could think of at the moment. Thank you. I'm afraid my battery will go shortly, so my farewells in advance when it crashes.
Before we leave, I think that it might be, we are the only 5 people here or something, but it might be helpful perhaps that you suggest, Mr. Chairman, that each one of those present writes 5 things that he thinks is most important to help or to work on. And let's see what comes out of that. What is the most important thing in the further education, but also what other things you feel might be interesting and important to touch in the webinars or in other ways. Maybe that would be a useful guide to where to go and which organization might help and so forth.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So, Bulent, any?
Should I start? I was
I
planning
think you have to think a little bit and probably write it out. It's 5 lines may take a lot of time, but if they are written well, they are very useful.
Yeah, I had suggested to those, while inviting to this meeting, to those who would not be able to attend, please write similar points as Dr. Sartorius says. But unfortunately, we didn't get much. From the current president of the WFMH, there was a link again, but sent not only to us, but to the world in general. So I have a hesitation to share it. If you want, I can. It's about 2 minutes or so. The good thing about brain drain, less brain drain, is really very important. Another important issue, I believe, is the tiredness spreads around, especially about Zoom meetings. Although it's almost free, we don't have to pay much, and we don't have any footprints. But due to probably the attention period of people who are expected to listen or to attend, we have to keep our meetings short, maybe. Especially the young people may say important things about these. That's from me.
I will have to leave you anyway now. But I think I'd be very interested to see what each one of you will see to write down as being the 5 most important things for medical students in which you would like to be involved or learn about?
We can get these written forms from SEED members, I hope.
We can. I think we could ask them and then we could compile them and share it with Professor Norman and Professor Rachel later. Definitely that would be something doable. All right, I think most of us will have to call it a day here. Bulan, could I just get you to give your last parting words for today's party, and then we can call it a day?
Well, the only thing I would like to say is thanks to those who have attended, especially at the beginning. We had the participation of President-elect of WFMH and the past president. And of course, we have our esteemed advisors, Dr. Sartoris and Dr. Jenkins. I would like to thank all and you for running this meeting in the best way.
Right, and a very great thank you again to everyone for joining us and participating again in our third World Mental Health Day Zoom party. And hopefully we'll be able to do the fourth one next year and we'll be able to see familiar faces again. With that, thank you everyone. Have a good day, good evening, wherever you are. And we see you when we see you then.